Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first live episode of the LZ Sports Show. I am one of your hosts. I am Mark Adam, and I am joined by my trusty co-host, Mr. Keith McKnight. How are you doing over there?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good, good. Jets last night, not their best defensive effort.
Nope.
But they got the big W, and that's all the players wanted to focus on in the post game interviews. You let in 5 goals. What do you got? Well, we got the W. Let's just worry about that, and then let us have that. We'll move on, and we'll figure out what we did wrong when we do our morning skate, kind of thing. But they had some serious defensive lapses, but I think most of that was the offensive prowess of the Edmonton Oilers. Would you agree, or would you say like they really their defense really let them down? The Jets, I should say.
It's almost confusing because the offensive output definitely really eliminated that factor. But against the Edmonton Oilers, yeah, that's definitely a team that you would have wanted to have. You wouldn't have wanted them to score 5 goals. Let's just put it that way. Especially being Connor Hellebuck coming off of the Vizina Trophy campaign. I don't think that he's too happy with it, but like you said, I don't think anybody wants to point fingers, especially publicly right now after a big win like that. I mean, there was 11 goals in that game, right?
And there were 10 players on each team involved. So you have let's just look at the stats real quick. First off, the 6 goals for to the Oilers 5. Insane, like you said, 11 goals. But here's a big difference: Oilers 45 shots, the Jets just 24. That's a big difference. That to me says that, yes, 5 goals got let in by the Jets on 45 shots, though. So Hellebuck's play wasn't quite as problematic as Mike Smith's play. Would that be a way to look at it as well? I think that was a little rough. Everything else pretty much even except for hits. The Edmonton Oilers out hit the Winnipeg Jets 37-17. That's a stat you got to pay attention to, and that's a little rough to watch actually when you think about it. So
It was very rough to watch, to see, especially when Mike Smith got pulled very early, right?
yeah,
And Koskinen came in and had to pretty much dig himself out of a hole that was already there. So
yeah, absolutely. And it was tough because the Jets would go up, and then the Oilers, being as offensively powerful as they are, they were pushing back just as hard, and it was a very exciting game to watch from a fan's point of view. Probably from the skaters' point of view, a pretty exciting game to play in. If you're the goalie or the coaches, not so much. Dennis Bayak was commenting on like, what do you think or actually, not sure if it was Dennis Bayak, but one of the commentators there said it was, what do you think Paul Maurice's heart rate is and Dave Tippett's heart rate is? So they're obviously happy to get the win when you're, in the Jets jerseys, but if you don't get the win, that's a hard game to take. Six goals to let in. That's got to be frustrating if you're the Oilers, and 5 goals can't feel good if you're the Jets, but you're happy you get the W. It's an exciting game to be part of. And Paul Maurice now passes Lindy Ruff for the sixth most wins in NHL history as a coach. So that was pretty intense as well. And let's have a look quickly at the score sheet. It's we got Mark Scheifele, the only player on either side to walk away with 3 points. Everyone else had two or less. Lots of players had 2 points overall, and like I said, 10 players on each side of the ice involved in the scoring. So,
yeah, when you have that many individuals on both sides, and you saw that as well, that's why it was such a great game to watch. It was exciting. It was fast paced. Of course, it was high octane on the offensive side for both teams. I know the defensive strategy probably wasn't well executed to the coaching staff's liking for either unit, but I think Edmonton needs to find a way to bounce back here. And not to knock on Mike Smith, but that might he might be, of course, be overlooked to for the start tomorrow.
Well, you have to think. I mean, that was that was just a chaotic game. You're not going to run into that kind of offensive tilt very often. We say that, but the Toronto Maple Leafs were in action against the Ottawa Senators, and they had quite the game as well, also ending 6-5, but that one in overtime. So that it wasn't like the North Division is just nuts right now, and it's just really cool to watch, to be honest. Really excited to see what happens with the rest of the season for the Jets, and if they can keep that kind of high pressure up. It was nice to see them out in front for once.
Yes.
They definitely blew the lead, but it was nice to see them out in front.
Yeah, and get that momentum going for them. So
Exactly.
That was nice when they ended that period when they went into the locker room at 2-1. That probably did a lot of wonders for their confidence, especially coming back out. So yeah.
Yeah, it was rough to watch that Oilers team work, because they're just so good, and every time they touch the puck, you're just like, oh no, they're going to score. Like there's just that feeling of it, especially when they're in their home rink. They're comfortable. They know, the bounces of the boards and all this stuff. And I mean, anytime Connor McDavid's on the ice, that's a threat. Doesn't matter what end of the ice he's on. If he gets the puck behind his own net, he's still a threat to score. He's just one of those players you have to watch. And Leon Draisaitl was kept off the score sheet. That was a big thing that I was pretty surprised by, to be honest. So again, looking at the stat sheet there, no Leon Draisaitl. So you saw Chiasson with 2 goals, Nugent Hopkins with 2 goals, Yamamoto with 2 goals, and McDavid no goals, but did manage to get 2 assists. And now he sits at 499 points, looking for that one more point to make it 500, and he'll be looking to do that when he plays the Jets tomorrow night.
It'll be interesting to see how he could get that done for himself. I know he had a couple scoring opportunities last night as well to get that done for himself, but he, like you said, he just didn't happen. And hopefully tomorrow that could be a milestone for him. But nonetheless, I think the Jets' dominant play is probably just going to continue. And that's exactly what they're going to want to do, and take this Edmonton team seriously. And the thing that I've noticed as well is other teams are starting to take the Jets that much more serious now. And I think the Jets are getting a lot more respect. And there's almost like a sense of threat, like when the Jets are coming into your building, or when you got to go play the Jets now. So, there's that, 2 to 3 year gap window where you can execute with all your talent and, maybe push these guys to make a deep playoff run. And I think this year might be the start of something great for this team, because that's the way they're looking like they're playing. I know that the season is still young too, and I was looking at the record numbers. They've only played like 12 or 15 games, right? So I know that those numbers, they don't, with that type of record, it doesn't look like they're separating themselves from any competition very much so. But I think that we're going to see the Jets take that step now and start separating themselves from that talent and putting themselves on top of the mountain.
I agree. I think there's a lot of players in that locker room that want to win, that have the ability to win, that they just have the skill and the mindset that every game they go out there, it's a W they're searching for. They're never happy with mediocrity, and at that level they shouldn't be. But was there one player last night that you thought stood out over the rest?
Another one that we talked about in the last show, I really like Mason Appleton's play. He started to really, really, playing him in the AHL is made him into the player that he is now. He was getting all that ice time, getting all those minutes, playing against, tough and stiff competition, and it's really paying off. And I think his game is really starting to not alone evolve, it's just starting to blossom now, and we're seeing what he's really capable of doing. And yesterday it showed again, and I really hope to see him in the lineup. And the boys are loving him on it. You see how much they're happy for him and the success that he's finding.
Absolutely. For me, last night's highlight was Kyle Connor. He was all over the ice. I mean, Mr. Opportunity, right place, right time, and then stick handling, as they kept saying last night during the broadcast, stick handling in a phone booth, just put on an absolute clinic, knocking pucks out of the air with that hand-eye, and having the wherewithal to grab that puck immediately and find the top shelf. The guy's just got unbelievable vision. He's always in the right place, always. And I mean, later in the game, he didn't end up scoring, so it didn't make the highlight reels because there were 11 goals in this game. But he ended up at one point, he pickpocketed Leon Draisaitl in the slot. You know, it was a forecheck. I don't know why Leon Draisaitl was the one of the last men back, but he pickpockets Leon Draisaitl and has a scoring opportunity pretty late in the game. And you know, a player like that is amazing to watch because he has his own style of play, but he's not afraid to steal from other players and borrow their skill sets. For example, that pickpocketing. Who do you think he gets that from? How many times do you hear the word Mark Scheifele strips him of the puck? Mark Scheifele is always digging and just turning pucks over and creating opportunities out of it. You saw that when they scored, when Wheeler scored that goal today on the tip, or yesterday on the tip. That shot from the point, where'd the puck come from? That came from Mark Scheifele forechecking, stripping somebody of the puck, finding the point man, shot, tipped by Wheeler, goal. That all started with Mark Scheifele and his pickpocket skills. And let me tell you, you got guys like Mason Appleton and Kyle Connor that are learning that from this guy, and they're only going to get better at it. So I love watching Kyle Connor play. He, for me, was the standout last night amongst a lot of very, very high caliber offensive power play. He was definitely the highlight for me.
Couldn't ask for you couldn't send anything better, you know. And I know that he's definitely a fan favorite, and the coaching staff is definitely not going to, you know, take him off the roster anytime soon unless there's an injury that prevails here. Knock on wood, hopefully that does not happen to him, because he's having a great career. And they were really, really, like, when they picked him, they really were interested in his development, and they developed him very quickly. And now he's just there, and he's like you said, he's all over the ice.
Yep. He's just all over the place all the time, and you can't really ask for more. The guy is doing what he's got to do, and the job is getting done. So I really like that.
It, though. Sorry to cut you off there, but yes, there was a statement about Kyle Connor. It says he's really starting to look expensive.
Yeah, yeah. He's going to be one of those guys that demands a lot of money in the long run. We're glad to have him here in Winnipeg for sure. And I'm excited to see what more he can do here in town, and hopefully he isn't a player that we develop and then ship out. But that doesn't seem to be the Jets' MO. The Jets tend to trade when they're trying to shake things up and get away from things. They're often not looking for talent when they're trading. It's more of a, this guy isn't happy here, how can we get something for him? It isn't, let's go get that guy, what do we have to give up? You know, like that seems to be their mentality when they're trading. And they draft well. The Jets have always had a great caliber AHL team because of their scouting, you know, some of the best in the league, you would have to say.
You said this in our first episode that there's just so much talent to choose from for forwards on this team that it's just absolutely crazy. And that's a good problem to have. That's a good thing. And that's just validating what you're saying about their AHL system.
Yeah, and being able to have a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois sit on the sidelines, you know, and still have that offensive game that they had last night, that's a great thing to watch from a fan point of view, because you want to see your team be successful in the long term. But success now matters too. And we have a lot of young talent that's still developing, and we still compete and at a high level. You know, great effort. You can see in the stats pack there when we cut to it that the record 9-5-1. That's a great record. You know, that's not a shady record at all. The Oilers struggling a little, 9-8. That's a little rougher, but overall, you can't really complain about the quality of play you're getting from your 12 forwards, no matter who they are in the lineup. It doesn't seem to matter If Pierre-Luc Dubois is out, you got a guy like Laine sitting on the sideline. Who cares? Guys like Jansen Harkins, Vesalainen, and Thompson's still hurt, but he may be back at some point soon. And Lewis, you got guys on the fourth line that are just grinders, and they're there to get the job done. You got guys that, people keep saying that Scheifele's having a quiet season, but I think Matt Perreault is having a very quiet, successful season. He's doing everything right on the ice and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to see more of that as well. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, he's he's flying under the radar, but he's still having some success. I know what you mean. He was always more so more so involved in the press. He was always, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he's having that quiet year this year. I mean, I think that's just what he wants, and maybe that's just going to work out now for him, and we'll see where that goes, because it's not like he's a bad player, right? Like, he's not like somebody who slows them down, I think.
No, I would say not. As far as injuries go, touching on that, it's still day-to-day with Pierre-Luc Dubois. He did accompany them on the road trip. So we'll see kind of how that all shakes out.
Yeah.
Tucker Poolman is, I'm glad that he's healthy, because that's a guy you want to keep healthy. He's a solid defender. And I think if you had to pick the best defenseman of the Jets based solely on last night's game, who would you have to pick?
I feel that I might take a lot of heat for this, but Neil Pionk had a pretty good game.
That's exactly who I would choose, man.
I saw the right game, okay, because as much as I'm learning the game more and more, he did have a better game. He did have more of a solid game for the Jets.
He was everywhere. He was in McDavid's face at every given opportunity, and as a result, you keep Connor David off. Connor McDavid is going to end up getting points. He's just going to. Every time he touches the puck, you just have to assume it's a thing. So keeping him from scoring the goals made him have to play the passes, and so he ends up with 2 assists, 0 goals, and I think that's a lot to do with Neil Pionk, and it also helps, and I think it's a good thing for the Winnipeg defense that they only had 24 shots against. They've been outshot in most of their games this season, and yesterday, they only had 24 shots on goal.
Yeah.
Right? But Connor Hellebuck stood tall. And I forget who I saw on TSN talking about how you have 2 factors of your defense. You have how the defense plays, and then you have your goaltender. And if one is playing poorly, you need the other to step up. And there were some definite defensive breakdowns, but Connor Hellebuck was there a lot. And it's weird to say that a goalie had a good game when he lets in 5 goals, but the caliber of players that are shooting at you make a big difference. And 45 shots, only letting in 5 goals against the likes of Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi, and all those other guys, those guys are no joke. They know how to pick corners. They know how to rip goaltenders apart. And I thought Connor Hellebuck played very well. And on the other side of the ice and the Edmonton end, their defense had the same collapses that the Winnipeg Jets did, but they didn't have the goaltending to back it up. And so I would say that the Edmonton Oilers had less defensive breakdowns, but their goaltender was way less sharp. So those fewer shots translated into way more goals. That's just the way it goes.
I like the way you explained that. I really like the way you explained that. You couldn't really, pinpoint it any more sharp than you just did right there. For what it's almost like, it was a good ratio. That's the word I was looking for. The way you explained that, yeah.
So the Jets are looking forward to another game against the Oilers. That'll be tomorrow night, so February 17th. Today being the 16th as we record this. And tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, so it's a late one for us here in Manitoba. I'm born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, where it's 2 hours even later. So that's an 11 p.m. start for anybody trying to be Oilers or Jets fans from the East Coast. It's a late one, but they're going to get that opportunity to see them come out and have another crazy offensive game, perhaps.
I
maybe
hope
both
so.
teams go back to the drawing board on the defense and clean that up. But who knows? It was exciting to watch, but you don't want to see every game like that. It's not a sustainable way to play hockey.
No, and both teams yesterday played like they were not going to be okay with losing to each other. You know what I mean? They like both teams was like, okay, no, like we're not going to lose this game. And literally to the end, Edmonton fought to tie that game. And I was like, wow, these guys are not going away. Like that last minute was a very long last minute.
Absolutely, I thought they were like both teams. You can't say one wanted it more than the other. You know, one bad bounce or one missed check from being 6-6 and going to overtime, or
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, or a little bit better goaltending from the Edmonton Oilers, and then what? You know, so it's just one of those things. You know, you got to take it game by game, but you definitely don't want to play every game the way they did last night, and they know that, and they tried to skirt a lot of the questions last night about what do you have to do to fix the 5 goals against. They skirted a lot of them by saying, listen, it's a system of take the win, enjoy it, use that for your confidence, then go see what you can do better, because you got the win, so you did a lot of things right. But what can you do better? What did you do wrong? What can we fix? But that's a next day thing. That's a morning skate problem, and I guarantee that they're addressing that in both dressing rooms today. So,
Both teams for sure. Because, yeah, like you said, to have 11 goals, I know that there's nothing wrong with having one of those types of games where there's just a high offensive prowess from both of them. But like you said, defensive, like because they're both really good teams. I don't think either team was happy with that at all. So maybe if they could trim that down to somebody walking out of the arena with like a 3-2 win, right? I think they'd be a little bit happier with that performance. And like you said, one missed check or just one silly turnover, just one costly little bounce. Like, it doesn't take very much for a goal to happen. I say that quite a bit. And unfortunately, that didn't happen for the Oilers last night, though.
No. And in other action, there was 2 other games in the Scotia North Division last night. The only team not playing last night was Montreal, that had the night off. But Calgary beat Vancouver last night 4-3. Ottawa in an absolute, I mentioned it earlier, but it was a crazy game. The Ottawa ended up beating Toronto 6-5 in overtime after being down 5-1 late in the second period. They ended up getting a shorthanded goal that led to a 5-2 situation. And, I mean, you heard the coach, I'm sure, if you watch any of the highlights, you hear the coach say at the second intermission, this is the worst I've ever felt about being up 5-2 ever. Like, we got to go in the dressing room, we got to fix some things and come out stronger. And then in the third period, they absolutely did the opposite of that. They collapsed, and they gave up 3 more goals in the third period to make it a 5-5 game, sending it to overtime, and then lost in overtime. So that is another crazy game in this very unpredictable division. Ottawa, struggling, now has 2 games in a row, which is crazy. That's called a winning streak, which they haven't had in forever. And some cool stat, in 241 games played where they were behind by 4 goals or more, this is the first time the Ottawa Senators franchise has ever won after being down 4 or more goals
In their
franchise history.
Wow.
But it blows my mind that they've been down 4 or more goals 240 times. That's the stat people kept sort of blowing by, because they're like, wow, they got that one win. But, like, how do you go down that many goals that often? Like, how is that a thing? I would like to see the stats on all the other teams in the NHL and the number of times they've been down by 4 or more goals, because I can't imagine it's around 250 games all time. I just can't.
No, I couldn't imagine. That's got to be very frustrating, and I don't like to knock on them either, but how bad can you let it get? How bad can you let the game go?
Well, it does happen, especially to the unfortunate Senators this year. But they looked like a different team in the third period after they scored that goal late in the second, and then just as the penalty expires, they get the guy out of the box to go on a break. First NHL goal ever for that guy. It was just a neat. Like it was cool to watch the highlights. I'm by no stretch an Ottawa Senators or Toronto Maple Leafs fan, but it was very neat to watch that game just because the competition in this division is absolutely not easy. Even the Ottawa Senators, who everybody walks in and thinks, here's an easy team to beat, and the cliche is, you don't overlook them, but legitimately don't overlook them. You don't need to do that. They are a team that requires your attention, and yeah, they're going to let you score a bunch of goals, but they have proven time and time again they have the ability to score a bunch of goals as well, and sometimes it works out that they scored more than you. But in a 6-5 game, 11 goals in that game, 11 goals in the Jets Oilers game. That's a lot of goals in this division. It was 4-3 in the Calgary Vancouver game. That's not a low scoring game either.
No.
That's not a tight defensive play. All the teams in this North Division play a very wide open, foot on the gas kind of hockey, and that does leave your defensive end of the ice in a lot of trouble, a lot more often than the other styles of play you see in the league. That said, Carolina beat the Blue Jackets last night 7-3. That game got a little out of hand. Jack Roslovic looked great in that game. I
saw that score. Actually, they lost 7-3 to the Hurricanes. Yes.
Yeah, that was crazy. Jack Roslovic, ex-Jet, he looked great, but that was a bit of a again. Once the floodgates opened, the hurricane hit, so to speak, and it was just from there. There was just no recovering for the Blue Jackets. But wow, that was rough.
No, it was an exciting night all the way around. Like you said, 11 goals in a couple games there, and then 7 with the Calgary. Yeah, it was. This division is very impressive, and I don't know. I don't want to boost the Jets' confidence too much, but I think they're going to take care of Vancouver very well, because Vancouver seems it's like a team that, they just can't really make it happen. Like, because they're not as good as I thought they were going to be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, Toronto, on paper, should be the best team in the league, I think.
Oh yeah, like the All-Star team. They're just jacked.
And so when they go and lose to Ottawa, you have to think they let their guard down. They thought they were in for an easy night, and they just sort of coasted. But it in the first 2 periods, it didn't look like that. That third period was, I don't even know what that was. When late in the second, you're up 5-1, you're in comfortable control, but then you just start missing all your defensive assignments and all that. It was a rough third period to watch. But anyway, that'll be our time here. Thank you for joining us here. Pionk is the Jets' best defenseman for sure. That's a comment here from Jack Rieger on YouTube Live. If you want to join us Thursday, we will be doing this again live. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that YouTube-y stuff. We want to make sure you get the alerts so that you know when we go live. Join us at thewpg.ca/sports, the home of the LZ Sports Show. LZ, of course, for those watching that don't know, LZ stands for Landing Zone, a nod to the military themed teams we have here in town. The Jets, the Bombers, and the Valor FC, who I'm repping here. I'm wearing the jersey too. Doing all Winnipeg today. So thank you on behalf of the WPG Magazine, WPG Sports, Keith McKnight, and myself, Mark Adam. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see the Jets in action again tomorrow. So get ready for that.